Brooke Hogan had imagined her wedding day since she was a little girl. But never in her wildest dreams did she picture it without her father's towering presence right by her side. For most daughters, the walk down the aisle is a treasured tradition, a symbolic moment when a father proudly guides his little girl into a new chapter of her life.
His daughter, Brooke Hogan, down the aisle, down the ramp. This is exactly what Brooke Hogan wanted.
For Brooke, it was supposed to be even more powerful, because her dad wasn't just a father. He was Hulk Hogan, a man who had lived his life in the spotlight, larger than life both in the ring and out of it. But when the moment finally came, the chair meant for him stayed painfully empty, and the aisle stretched ahead without his steady arm to lean on. From the outside, Brooke's childhood seemed like a whirlwind of excitement. Cameras, flashing lights, the sound of roaring crowds that was the background noise of her upbringing. To millions,
to be your lawfully wedded husband, promising to love and cherish through joy and sorrow, sickness and health.
I do.
Hulk Hogan was a legend, the ultimate showman whose name was etched into wrestling history. But to Brooke, behind the fame and the persona, he was simply Dad. He was the man who would sit at the kitchen table in the mornings, still half asleep, sipping coffee as he asked her about
wrestling is his, so he just had so much love for the business.
School. He was the guy who'd help her with her music, offer advice before a performance, and remind her, in his own unique way, that she could handle anything the world threw at her. Like any family, theirs had its share of ups and downs. Fame brought opportunities, but it also brought pressure and public scrutiny.
What's going on with you? Because you tell us you're mature.
No, I get it, okay?
So, you can take it however you want to. It is what it is.
There were moments of tension, misunderstandings, and changes that tested the bond they shared. Still, Brooke always believed that when the biggest milestones came, her father would be there. It was a promise she held onto through the good and the bad, and her wedding day was the ultimate one she thought they'd share. Brooke had pictured it 1,000 times, the doors opening, her arm hooked around his, the music swelling as they took those first steps together. She imagined the subtle squeeze of his hand, the whispered words of encouragement that would calm her nerves. She thought about how proud he would look, how the moment would be captured in photographs they'd both treasure for years.
His daughter, Brooke Hogan, down the aisle, down the ramp. This is exactly what Brooke Hogan wanted.
He doesn't any boys. I'm still 12 years old in his mind. He's very protective.
But life, with all its unpredictability, had other plans. In his later years, Hulk's health became an increasingly fragile thing. The man who once seemed invincible, who could step into an arena and take on the world, began facing the kind of struggles that no amount of strength or fame could completely shield him from. Brooke watched the changes with a quiet ache, torn between wanting to protect his privacy and facing the reality that their time together was not infinite. She didn't dwell on the possibility of him not being there for her wedding, but the thought sometimes lingered like a shadow in the back of her mind. When the day of the wedding arrived, it was beautiful in every way, and yet, for Brooke, it was also deeply bittersweet. The morning was filled with laughter and the usual flurry of bridal preparations, hair being styled, makeup, brushes sweeping across cheeks, friends and family bustling around in excited anticipation. But every now and then, Brooke would catch herself glancing toward the door, almost expecting to see her dad's familiar figure walking in with that signature confident stride. She had chosen someone dear to her to fill the role of escorting her down the aisle, and she was deeply grateful for their love and support. But as she stood at the threshold, the music beginning to play, she couldn't stop the wave of emotion that hit her. In her mind, she saw flashes of her father teaching her to ride a bike, clapping the loudest at her school events, smiling proudly when she hit the stage for a performance. Those memories walked with her even if he could single quotes. Each step toward the altar felt heavier than the last, not because of the distance, but because of the absence. Guests saw a radiant bride, glowing with happiness, but inside, Brooke carried a quiet ache that only she could truly feel. She knew this was a day to celebrate, but grief and joy were tangled together, coexisting in a way that was both painful and strangely beautiful. After the ceremony, amid the laughter, the toasts, and the music, Brooke found a moment to slip away. She stood outside under the soft evening sky, the cool air wrapping around her as she let the emotions of the day wash over her. She thought about how many times her father had lifted someone's hand in victory, the way a crowd would erupt at the sight, and she thought about how he never got the chance to lift hers on this day, a victory of a different kind, In reflecting later, Brooke realized it wasn't just about the physical act of walking her down the aisle. It was about the meaning behind it, the journey they had shared, the challenges they'd faced, the unconditional love that had endured through it all. That walk represented so much more than a few steps. It was the culmination of a lifetime, of moments, lessons, and unspoken promises. She found ways to honor him throughout the celebration. A small charm tucked into her bouquet held special meaning only she knew. A song played during the reception quietly echoed their bond, and in her heart, she carried a private message to him. Words she whispered silently as she took those steps toward her future. It wasn't the moment they'd planned, but it was hers and his, all the same, in the days and weeks that followed. Brooke found herself caught between gratitude and longing. Gratitude for the love surrounding her, for the joy of marrying the person she adored, and for the life ahead of her. Longing for the man who had been such a constant presence, whose absence now left a space nothing could completely fill. She leaned on the lessons her father had left behind. Lessons about resilience, about standing tall even when life knocks you down, and about holding on to the people you love with both hands. On her wedding day, those lessons took on new meaning. They became the way she carried herself, the way she allowed herself to feel both the joy and the sorrow, and the way she kept his presence alive in her heart. Some believe that those we've lost never truly leave us. Brooke liked to think that in some way, her father was there that day, in the warmth of the sunlight streaming through the windows, in the sudden calm she felt just before stepping into the aisle, in the breeze that seemed to wrap around her like a familiar hug. Those small, almost imperceptible moments gave her comfort, as if he had found a way to walk beside her. After all, years from now, when Brooke looks back at the photographs from her wedding, she will see more than a day without her father. She will see a day where love took many forms, some seen, some felt. She will remember the faces of those who stood by her, the laughter that filled the air, and the quiet, private ways she carried her dad with her. And she will know that while he couldn't walk her down the aisle in person, the path she took that day was one he had helped her prepare for all her life, because in the end, the walk wasn't defined by who was physically there, it was defined by the years of love, guidance, and shared experiences that had led her to that moment. And while it wasn't the picture-perfect vision she had once imagined, it was real. It was filled with both joy and loss, strength and vulnerability, and that made it uniquely hers. That's the thing about life's biggest moments. Sometimes they don't happen the way we plan, but they still carry the same weight, the same meaning, and the same love, and in Brooke's case, maybe even more. Because when you have to take those steps without the person you thought would be by your side, you realize just how deeply they're woven into who you are, and you carry them forward with every step you take. And for Brooke Hogan, that walk down the aisle will forever be a reminder that love doesn't end with goodbye. It finds new ways to show up in memories, in lessons, and in the unshakable bond between a father and daughter that not even time can break.